WLFE DB Radio.
Hi, this is Tony Martin. You're listening to Metal Mayhem ROC with Jon The Vernomatic Verno.
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC.
It's getting nice and heavy.
And now, welcome tonight's host, Jon The Vernomatic Verno.
Good evening, everybody, or I should say good afternoon. Up here in Rochester, New York, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC. We have a special edition today. We're coming at you a day early. I have on the line from New Jersey Metal Walt, one of my correspondents. Hey, Walt, how you doing, man?
Good, Verno. How are you today?
Good. So we today's show, it's an up-to-the-minute show, as we had a chance to interview Tony Martin yesterday, former lead singer of Black Sabbath. He has a brand new solo album out, Thorns, and the buzz around the metal community is, when we did this interview yesterday, Tony shared with us the first time that the Black Sabbath catalog that he recorded in the 80s and early 90s, well, they struck a deal and now it's going to be re-released. Everything but, I have to stress this, but the Internal Idol release. So what I wanted to do was recap our interview and just give everyone for the first time Tony's take on these albums being released, plans for touring for Thorns, and you and I doing a deep dive into the album with Tony. So quickly, well, what was your take on the interview with Tony yesterday? Because you're a big fan of Tony, Sabbath, the whole genre. What'd you get out of the interview yesterday?
So, yeah, and I was well prepared because I do know his Sabbath years quite well. Big fan of that period of the time at that time. Basically, Tony was well prepared on the spot with the questions, and I believed he was very insightful with his responses. He answered the questions directly, and I think he really offered up some fantastic insight, especially on pretty much each of the tracks on the new album. I think John and I really tried to make an impression that we knew the content, and Tony really opened up about the new songs, from the musicians to the songwriting to the little things that were added along the way, to some of the themes and the lyrical contents and the special guests. And I really hope for you, the listeners, that you can appreciate this, because I think we were the first ones to really get him to open up on the new album. That said, as he went back in the catalog and he talked about his years in Sabbath, he was very colorful and very honest. It wasn't all, roses. I think he painted a realistic picture of what he had to go through, and some very interesting little tidbits will come out in the call. And of course, yeah, he offered up some insight on the re-release of most of the albums that was breaking news in our call, and shedded some light on, let's say, touring plans for this album, as well as already a peek into what he's already thinking about in terms of next solo release, which I think was something that I was not aware of. So overall, I was pleased with it. It was a great dialogue, and I really think any Sabbath fan and listener is going to much appreciate this one.
I agree. Just the behind-the-scenes talk. Within the interview, he shares, like Walt said, just tidbits beyond belief. So it's a great listen. It's exciting to be able to have some of our, and I use this term loosely, our rock idols and the guys we look up to, keep doing what they're doing. We can't stress enough that, sure, you got the young guys coming up and we need those young guys, but let's not forget about the old guys, because the old guys kick ass, and this album by Tony Martin, Thorns, is one of those. So, Walt, thank you for your participation. Again, the show is Metal Mayhem ROC. If you're new to the show, visit our website. You could find direct links to Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, download some past shows, rate and review, all that stuff. So, again, my name is Jon The Vernomatic Verno, my co-host, Metal Walt from New Jersey. So right now, let's get into this interview. Tony Martin, Thorns, Metal Mayhem ROC. Our guest today is best known for his time as singer of Black Sabbath from 1987 through 1995, involved with 5 studio albums, a true veteran of heavy metal. He's here today to talk about his brand new solo album, Thorns. Let's welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC, Tony Martin. Hey, Tony, Jon Verno and Walt from New Jersey here with you. How are you, buddy?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks for having me on.
So, 15 years since the last one, and now we have Thorns. Congratulations on the release. Let's quickly get the background on the band, and then we'll dive into Thorns.
Okay, the actual band members are people that I've known for some years. So they're mostly friends, people that I've worked with before, apart from Scott, which Scott's mostly unknown to most people, but from a chance meeting on Facebook, this dude suddenly appeared and started sending me guitar riffs. And it was like, then he sent another one, then he sent another one, and then he sent another one, and these riffs just kept coming. And so I sort of got in touch with him and said, what do you want me to sing on these? What this is all about? And he said, yeah, man, whatever you want to do. I said, okay, this is the deal. I cut them up, put them where I want them, and then I'll sing on them and I'll send it back. And the first song that we did was As the World Burns, which you've probably seen the lyric video for that. Because then everybody went, whoa, that's like really good. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell your mother. Don't tell your grandmother. Don't tell anybody. Just keep it secret. So then we started working on more tracks. Well, I'd already started working on the album before that, and it was going to be called Book of Shadows, which is also a track on the album. So I'd already had a direction in my mind, and then I thought, no, where do I go now? Because it had got heavy all of a sudden with the arrival of Scott, and I didn't know what to do. So I just continued making songs with Scott for a while, and I thought, you know what? Let's just do it all and put everything on there, and that's why all the diversion comes. So then I started thinking who we could invite to work on there. So then we got Magnus Rosen on bass, because I play some bass also. We had Greg Smith on there playing bass. Bruno Assad did a couple of keyboard parts for me. He's from Brazil. Danny Needham, he did the crux of the drums, although I play some drums on there as well. My son Joseph plays some guitar on there. My daughter's in the choir on there. So it's all people that I know, and I do trust, and it's great to have them part of it. So it was a joy, really, to have them all on board.
You mentioned your daughter in the choir, if you will. Is that one of my questions? Was that the girl singing at the end of the song, Book of Shadows? Is that what you're referring to?
She does that. And then in the vocals within, I'm singing some of the choir, daughter singing some of the choir. We got various people adding their little bits to it, So, yeah, some of the background vocals here and there. It's just people that I know.
Now, Book of Shadows, the song, longest song on the album. Most of these songs are between 4-5 minutes. Book of Shadows comes in at a little over 6. Was that something, your direction, like you wanted to get these songs in and out, or it's just the way the songs develop through the process between you and Scott?
Well, Scott doesn't play on Book of Shadows. That's all me, basically. And Crying Wolf, that's me. And This Is Your Damnation, that's me as well. So I allowed the songs to come through naturally, and I didn't sort of force it one way or the other. If we had to do a single for the radio, we might have to edit, time-wise, for some of these songs. But on the whole, we just let them evolve, and that's just the way they turned out, at the end.
I have on the line our correspondent, Metal Walt from New Jersey. Walt, you wanted to get in on this. What do you have for Tony this morning?
So it's a pleasure, Tony, to be able to speak to you. So let's continue on the song Book of Shadows. In interpreting the lyrics, it seems to convey some sort of, let's say, lifelong doom or spell because of what the Book of Shadow is. And toward the end of the song, the singing, and I think that's your daughter there, is sort of suggesting is there really is no escape from the Book of Shadows, and you will be part of this book forever, even after you're gone. So tell us a little about the interpretation of the song and what you were trying to convey here in the lyrics.
Okay, so you know what they say is when you die, your whole life is supposed to flash before your eyes, right? So imagine if you happen to find a download of it before and you come across the book and you open the book. Okay, now you can see your life before you and pages, and you have all the bad shit in there, the good shit is in there. What if you don't like the bad stuff? You try to rip out the pages, they just reappear. So you go through this book. Would you want anybody to read it? Would you want somebody else to see it? Are you ashamed of what's in there? Do you like what's in there? So the song really is, imagine you found a book of your own life and it's given to you or you come across it. That's what you're dealing with. So, I'm not sure how many people would like to reveal their whole life secrets, so that's what the song is about, really.
Tony, last night on the live radio show, I had a chance to play the song Black Widow Angel, and some of the listeners in the chat room, we have an interactive chat room, they were digging it, and some of the comments came back as main riff very sabby-ish, the slap bass in the midsection wasn't unexpected yet unique. Tell us about Black Widow Angel. I love the vocals on that track.
Okay, thank you. Black Widow Angel is kind of old school. It comes across as it should do, really. It is as you hear it, and for the very reasons why you would imagine. It's a, God and the devil type thing, which I'm not particularly a religious person, but the story of God and devil, it just keeps going on. I mean, bands have been writing about this stuff for like years and years. So you can't just write about the devil and you can't just write about, well, I suppose you could write about God, but I tend to like to put a story around the idea. And so it's just a twist on still the good and evil type thing, but the bass thing, now that was a surprise to me as well, because I asked Magnus Rosen if he would, I said, can you play a solo on bass? And he said, yeah. Okay, hit me with something. And he came up with that. And so I thought, oh, that has just got to go in. Just got to go in. I couldn't leave it out. And I tried to leave it out. I said, there's no way I can leave that out. So that kind of just hit me. And it's great when you just mute the band just for a few seconds. And I just love it. But you see, all of this stuff, all of these different styles and different things, that's what it's like inside my head. It's a nightmare in there. It's a curse. All of these things going off, kicking off here, this way and that way. And so to try and control them becomes impossible. And this is the first time on this album, it's the first time I've been allowed, given myself permission to do that. And it worked.
Oh, sure it worked. Were you guys in the same room? Was this a file sharing? So there wasn't that interaction. And once you heard that bass lick, if you will, did it move a material in another direction? You're like to yourself, hey, we have this bit of talent that I have to work with. Explain that process, the creative process.
No, it didn't really change the song. I mean, the song was already written, and so it was an addition, really, just like a cherry on the top. Just fantastic to hear. No, the studio work, really, I mean, everybody did their own thing wherever they were and sent me the files to lay into the track. So we weren't in the same room, but I do have, quite close conversations with these guys and sort of try to explain what it is I'm trying to do. But I do allow people to do their thing. It's important, really. Otherwise, what's the point of inviting them on? I mean, people say this to me all the time, we've got a perfect song for you. No, you ain't. No. You have to wait for me to do it before you say that. So I do like to have the interaction with other players, and I allow that to happen because I enjoy that.
Tony, it's a good segue off of this track into the song Nowhere to Fly, because I think this is another one of these slow, kind of slogging mid-pace songs with a really, really heavy reminiscent of the Black Sabbath days. And again, another one with a really cool bass riff. And I think you pointed out your sort of take on organized religion and your own personal beliefs, but I really enjoyed this one because I love how the devil is kind of talking about life after death, but in a way, kind of laughing in the face of, let's say, the fool who might believe there is something more. To catch your phrase, when you die, you're gone. Again, can you elaborate a little bit more? Is this your kind of fantasy lyrics, or maybe you kind of putting in your own little personal beliefs about religion?
I mean, none of us know, do we? I mean, do we know what the devil is really like, or what God is really like? Nobody really knows. So, yeah, it's fantasy because it's, nobody can really actually tell you. So it is, again, it's a story. And I know it's old school and it does keep coming back, the old God and devil thing. But again, it's another twist on it. And if I can just explain how that sort of manifests itself, if you all know the film Titanic, right? So
yes,
you can sing about the boat, but it can get quite boring singing about the boat. But then if you put a love story on the boat, then you've got a twist. So you can sing or you can talk about the Titanic, which is famous, obviously. But then if you add a story to it, and that's what I do with the God and devil thing. So yeah, everybody can sing about God and the devil, but you still need a story. So that's what I'm doing, really. It's old school. It works for me. It matches my voice, which is kind of important. I do enjoy that storytelling stuff. It's a world I can escape into, and it really works for me.
And I think you see that also on This Is Your Damnation, because, again, I called it, like, let's say it's the Happy Devil song, right? Because it's, I think, the most unique song on the album. It's got that kind of acoustic, bluesy, country twang to it. I could see myself kind of slapping my knee on it, and I really love the overall singing structure of the song. Again, it's about that age-old debate of heaven versus hell. So I think you can lump that into your theme on that, but a really cool little track there as well.
I thought so. I mean, I did try to get it removed, actually, because I wasn't convinced that people would go for it. But everybody said, no, leave it on. So, okay, if you're sure. So we did. Mostly people are connecting with it, but I think it needs a video to explain what the song. I think if you saw it, it would make more sense because, just listening to it is a little bit odd, but I do like that.
Now we have a theme, indirectly a devil theme, the track Run Like the Devil. I envision this song being like a show opener. It's one of those shit and gets. Yeah, there's excitement there. Tell us a little about Run with the Devil. The vocals are soaring. Again, I got to compliment you on the vocals here. It's fantastic, Tony. You sound really, really good.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. I mean, I appreciate it especially because my voice is actually down 5 notes from where I was when I was singing with Sabbath. So this is my new range. But it's working for me. This range, I can make it fly, really. And when you get songs like Run Like the Devil, it just shows that this voice works with that kind of music. And I love playing with that stuff, that kind of theme tune, melodic, heavy rock, stuff. Really works. Again, it's just a twist on the devil and God thing, but with my own sort of storytelling, and I do insist on it being a story. It has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has to make sense. The words have to be understandable and stuff. Obviously, the English language is a good language to do that with, so you can put little twists and turns in there. So, Again, it's old school, but it works for me. I just really enjoy digging into that thing, and it's still, working. So why not?
Hey, Tony, just an observation on perhaps Scott's contributions. I think, I think there's, maybe 80% of the songs are hard rock or metal, but I think in those categories of the harder songs, you do have a couple of that have the Sabbathy feel, like we talked about already. But then I think most of the other ones, to be honest, like a song like No Shame at All, I really hear more of a bluesy, fast, heavy riffing type play, maybe reminiscent of a little bit of like a Jakey Lee style. And I think these are, to me, really refreshing hard rock metal songs because you're just not copying your past. And there's just some killer licks in there and great solos. And then you throw in your stories there, especially on No Shame at All. I love the whole storyline behind that about the backstabbers and the hypocrites and the wild lady with the politician and the taxman. Like, tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, let's just go back to the guitar, the riffs and things that you're talking about first, because it has been very refreshing working with Scott. He's a surprise. I mean, he's relatively unknown, but he's just so prolific with these guitar riffs that he keeps coming up with. And the other thing with Scott is that he gives every guitar riff a name. So, like, when I was working with Tony Iommi, for example, we'd open a box of cassettes and it would have riff in E, or fast riff in E, slow riff in E, maybe riff in A. It could mean anything. But with Scott, it gives them all a name. So when he says, I don't know, As the World Burns, I know which one he's talking about. And sometimes I can take inspiration from the names that he gives the guitar riffs. And that's like one of them. It doesn't always work, but I've got a fair few out of it, and I do try to sort of use the names that he puts with the riff so that we continue that thing. But I'm just really pleased being able to collaborate with Scott. He's opened my eyes to a lot of guitar type things. It reminds me of the days when I worked with Tony Iommi with the same kind of prolific riff making, process. So I'm really chuffed to be working with him and to have him on board with this. It's a great pleasure. And I think you'll find Scott will, he'll run with it. I think, he's got time, and I'm 65 years old now. So I don't know how many years I've got left, but, Scott's got a fair few left in him. And I do anticipate that he'll be doing other stuff as well. We've already started writing another album. So, it's just one of those things when you find somebody that you work well with, then go work,
We're talking with Tony Martin. His new solo CD, Thorns, is out now, Dark Star Records. Tony, let's get the socials. Tony Martin official Facebook page, TonyMartin.com. Where could people find this? It's everywhere, I take it. All streaming services, direct order through your website. How can people find it?
Well, at the moment, I'm doing autographed CDs myself and sending those to people out and about. But the actual lead label in all this is Battle God Records over in Australia. They have the whole of the world. And then Dark Star have licensed it through them to do the Americas. So, yeah, it's a worldwide release. You can find it mostly anywhere. It's going in the stores, in the streets. It's going online. It's going streaming. It's going in all kinds of places. So have to be a little patient with it and find the one that's currently out there. But it's all kicking off. I mean, where are we? We're only a few days into the release, so we've got some more work to do yet. But gradually you'll find it appears in most places.
We're going to discuss a few more about Thorns, and then we're going to take a walk down heavy metal memory lane with you, refresh you on some memories and anecdotes that Walt and I share following your career for 30 years. Let's see, the title track, Thorns. Why did we name the album Thorns? And tell us about the title track. Very melodic, acoustic intro. It builds up. Let's hear about Thorns.
Well, it kind of developed into something it didn't really start off as. I mean, the basic idea is that a woman, girl, has been really quite severely abused in her home or family situation, and she's escaped into a dark place. She doesn't want to engage with people anymore. She self-harms, she cuts her skin, and she's just withdrawn to the point that when anybody tries to be kind to her or talk to her, she doesn't want to hear it because the words feel like thorns sticking in her skin. So that you've got the background. Then COVID came along, and it turns out, you probably hear the same over there that we're hearing here, that this situation actually made it worse for those being abused, because now they can't escape and they're kind of stuck. Their abusers have them captured really in four walls. Now I'm thinking, oh God, that's like, I've touched on something here that is, it's serious, but I don't want to make light of it. But now I've just made a rock song and told that kind of story, and I think I'm in trouble now. So I sort of had to think about it, and it kind of developed that. Well, I needed a girl to sing the girl parts, which I couldn't sing. And very soon, Pamela Moore's name came up. So we have this thing on the internet. I've never actually met her, but she's got the same birthday as me. And so she says, I'm her brother from another mother. And I say, she's my sister from another mister and all that kind of stuff. We have all this thing on the internet. And I just called her and said, do you fancy... And I didn't even finish the sentence. She just said, yes. Okay, right. So then you're on it. So she did a really good job of portraying that female side vocally. I was really chuffed with that. So I think she's enhanced the track a lot, by her presence. And it developed into this serious, non-intentional thing about, abuse and stuff like that. And it's turned out good. I mean, I think it's the right song in the right place at the right time. But for a moment, I thought I'd maybe overcooked it, But no, I like it.
Pamela Moore from the Queensryche, Sweet Sister Mary.
Sweet Sister Mary.
Yeah. So she's the go-to female voice of metal albums. That's excellent. Congratulations on that.
She's a great singer, and I think still got a lot to give. I mean, we ain't finished yet. I mean, like if she's got the same birthday as me, I can't say now, can I? Because that'll tell her what her age is. But she's up there, and she's still very capable of doing this stuff. So all my hat is off to Pam. Yeah, great stuff.
Walt, you have a comment finishing up Thorns?
Yeah, so finishing up Thorns, Tony, a couple maybe just small observations. One on the song we have not talked about yet, which would be Crying Wolf. And again, I think this is one of those unique pieces, and it's unique from the heavier songs, and it's got that little bit of almost like a Spanish flamenco type feel to that main riff with some really cool vocal harmonies. Is this kind of you just playing this out, sitting in the studio, tweaking out a little riff and kind of more your song versus the Scott songs?
Well, as I said earlier, these tracks like Book of Shadows, Crying Wolf, Damnation, they were the songs that I had started to run with in the beginning, and the album was going to be called Book of Shadows. So those songs were already done by the time Scott turned up. And that's kind of why it was a bit confusing, because I thought I was going off in one direction and then ended up going much heavier. So it was like a real, conflict in my head. Wait a minute, I don't know which way I'm going now. But, I allowed myself to include it all. And I have to say, this is the most Tony Martin sounding Tony Martin album that there's been up to now. It really captures everything that I love about music and rock music and, performing and stuff. It really, really appeals to me. So, Yeah, Crying Wolf is one of those. I say it's an unplugged track rather than acoustic track. Because it had a heavier version, and those riffs do sound good heavy. But I loved the acoustic on there, and unplugging it just made it, I think, work. And the story and the vocal goes really well with it. So everything just fit. I just felt really comfortable the way that everything went together, and so I kept it.
Nice work on that one. And Tony, just one little small observation. Again, this is kind of the outlier question, but Greg Smith, the bass player on your album, he's kind of a New York City north, eastern side of Jersey guy, and we see him in all the different bands. He's played with Ted Nugent Dokken and a bunch of others. What's the association with him coming into the album?
Oh, well, we actually met. I was doing a guest appearance on a kind of rock theatre show thing that was going around at the time, and we just hit it off. I mean, it was just great friends almost instantly. Bobby Rondinelli was in there, and all sorts of people. Anyway, we became really quite good friends. I went and spent Thanksgiving with him and his family, and we got really close, and then went and stayed with him for a while. And I just love Greg Smith. I mean, Greg Smith, he's the man, he's the dude. He just does it, and he's solid, and he plays, and he enjoys playing. He loves his thing. He's at the top of his game. I mean, it was just a great opportunity for me to have Greg on that. And I really loved that track. No shame at all. It does tell a story, like you said, and I love that story on that track. But he was very kind, and he put his mark on it, I think. Love it.
Well, Tony, again, congratulations on Thorns. It must be exciting in this COVID time to create with your people and get this out there. We'll do everything possible up here to promote it. Walt and I, we consumed it, and it's been great recapping with this.
We love you guys. I mean, we need you guys to sort of let everybody know what we're doing. So it is important to us, and thank you for considering it and giving it some airtime,
Hey, Tony, what are the chances you get over here and do a couple of shows? I mean, you got an American band, you got Greg Smith. What can we do to entice you to come over and do a couple weekend shows? Is there a certain budget we could have Heavy Metal ROC promote the show in the New York City area? Have you ever put any thought to that?
Nice try. The thing for me, right, okay. Right, this is another thing about me. I've been in the studio for the past 25 years. I don't have a band. If I go out on the road, I have to hire the musicians. Then it's, if they're available, you have to find out who's around at the time. And then you don't have a chance to really work together. It needs rehearsing, and the whole show needs building. So it's one of my regrets that I didn't keep a band. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. That's just the way my career took me into the studio, and I became a singer-songwriter. And so all of my work has been in the studio. It's something I've got to rebuild. For me, it really is starting from the beginning. I mean, right from the beginning. It's getting the musicians, getting the show, getting the thing on the road, as opposed to having been in Black Sabbath, which is it's a huge machine. It is just massive thing, and it's all in place, and you don't want for anything. You get more or less whatever you want. I've got to rebuild that. So I would imagine that the guys on the album would be the band if they're available, but then I know that there are other people around if they were interested, and if I could hook up with them and get it rehearsed. And I've said to the labels, if we do this on the road, it's got to be done right. It just can't be, because the danger is what happens is with people that you don't know and not rehearsing it very well, it starts to look and sound like a tribute act. And Sabbath stuff doesn't deserve that. It's got a feel, it's got a way of working on stage, and that needs to be put across correctly. So it is hard. I do want to get back out there, but it is a big job to get the whole thing back out there and then promote it, then tour it. And then your different territories and continents, the band changes again, so you got to do it all again. It's just a big thing for me. So I do want to get out there, and if I have the chance, yeah. So, watch this space. But honestly, I don't think it'd be this year anyway. With the COVID thing, my country might say, yeah, you can go. Your country might say, no, fuck off, you're not coming here. So...
You're so right.
At different states and different towns.
Yeah.
And
so you can't plan anything. And you need 6 months at least to plan things. I don't think it'll be this year. And like I said, we're already writing another album. So, hey, why don't we write another album, then tour two albums like the year after or something? I don't know. I really don't know. It's a big thing for me because I just haven't had a band for so many years. So, yeah. That was the short answer, by the way.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well,
we got a little time left, and like I said, we wanted to take that walk down heavy metal memory lane.
Try me.
Now, my co-host here, Metal Walt, again, he's been funly stalking you for years. Walt, I want you to share with Tony some of your anecdotes and experiences, where you met him, how you saw him, and you have a whole list of questions. So let's get this going.
Sure. So, Tony, I will say my introduction to you as a singer, I was 17 years old, and I heard The Shining on a very popular radio show in the 80s called Metal Shop.
Uh-huh.
And I remember saying, oh, that's Black Sabbath? I mean, who's this guy singing? And I tell you the truth, the next day, I got on the PATH train to New York City with my buddies, and I went right down to 9th Street in New York City in the Village and bought the cassette. So that was my introduction to you as a singer. But I will say, I'd like to ask you a few things about each of the albums in the Sabbath history that you played on.
Okay.
For Eternal Idol, it's no secret that when you came in, the songs were written, the demos were recorded with Ray Gillen, and then they kind of asked you to come in and re-record the songs. But what I don't think I know, or even the listeners may know, is what was your in with the Sabbath camp? Were you from that kind of same, Black Country area? Did you have connections to Tony or their management? Kind of what was your in with the band?
Good question. That's a long way back. Okay, so firstly, my manager at the time, Albert Chapman, went to school with Tony Iommi. So they grew up together in Birmingham, England. Albert became my manager, and he sort of said that Sabbath were kind of looking, for somebody. It actually started in 1986 when they had Glenn Hughes doing the Seventh Star album. Yep. Something happened with Glenn, but don't know what the situation was. But they put me on standby. They said they might have a gig for me, and I was scared stiff. I can't sing like Glenn Hughes. Nobody can sing like Glenn Hughes. He's just a terrific singer. And so I was really scared. And then they found Glenn again, got him back. Then he left, and then Ray Gillen joined, and then he left to go and join Blue Murder with John Sykes. Then they called me again. Now it's 1987. So then they said, you better come down to the studio and have an audition. So I went to London, and they gave me one song, and that was The Shining. They said, sing that. So I sang it, and they sent me away. That was the 16th of May, I think, 1987. And then 2 days later, on the 18th of May, they came back and said, okay, you got the job. You've got a week to finish the album. So I had to really learn fast. And to be honest, it was the pressure was off because it was already written. I didn't have to write melodies or lyrics. It was like a joy, because now all I had to really do was sing it. And they said, just copy what's there. Don't change anything. Don't rewrite the lyrics. Don't do anything. Just sing what's there. We don't have time to rewrite it or anything like that. You just need to do it, and really quickly. So I did. I did my best. It turned out okay, but that was the period that I learned my place in Sabbath. So then Headless Cross comes along. Now that's me writing my own lyrics and my own melodies and the rest of the stuff. So there is a stark difference between Eternal Idol and Headless Cross, but Eternal Idol is where I learned what I had to do with Black Sabbath. I mean, to be suddenly put in front, the front man on one of the most famous bands on the planet. I mean, what would you do? I mean, just shit your pants probably.
And then, Tony, there was also that maybe little-known memory where maybe your first show was the band went to Sun City, Africa during that whole apartheid era. Was that your first show actually performing with the band? And what was, considering that controversial time in Africa, do you remember that? And what was that all about?
Yeah, no, it wasn't the first show. The first show was Athens in Greece, and then we went to South Africa. So I had no idea. I was not part of that whole decision thing at all. They just told me, they said, right, we're going to Greece and then we're going to South Africa. Okay. What am I going to say? No. So, but then nobody sort of explained to me what the thing in South Africa really was. And Geezer Butler refused to do it. Bev Bevan refused to do it. And I said, why is everybody pulling out of this gig? I don't understand what that is. And they explained to me what it was. Oh, shit. So now I know, but now it's too late. Now I can't sort of leave and sort of say, well, I'm not doing it either. So we ended up going to South Africa, into Sun City, and then suffering quite a lot of battering in the press and the comments that were made about doing it. And I do understand. But because I had no involvement in the decision or how that came about, I just kind of got dragged along with it, really. And then it was on upward after that, right?
Moving on to Headless Cross, again, you kind of touched on that. And actually, that was something I was going to ask you about it because, again, I love this album. I mean, one of my favorite actual Black Sabbath tracks, forget what era, what singer is, When Death Calls. I was a member of the whole Black Sabbath Appreciation Society run by Pete Sarfis, and don't you remember that period?
Yeah.
But there also was that unique where some of the songs like Devil and Daughter and Call of the Wild really were very overly melodic and not typical of something you would see, let's say, in a Black Sabbath song.
Right.
So obviously this was your first opportunity to contribute in the crafting of the songs. So tell us a little about that songwriting and sort of what you brought in terms of that melody and how it was received.
Okay, well, firstly, you have to understand that there'd been a real change in the Black Sabbath sound from the originals, the Ozzy days. They didn't have keyboards. Not really. I mean, they had sounds, wind, bells, thunder, that kind of thing. But they didn't really have keyboards. Well, Jeff Nichols was the keyboard player, and he introduced that kind of keyboard thing with the Ronnie James period. And that suddenly started to open up things, melody-wise. Tony Iommi could sort of branch off and do layers of stuff like that. By the time we got to Headless Cross, we were going crazy with it. I mean, we were in the studio layering stuff. I did 50 tracks of vocals. Tony was doing like 20 tracks of guitars. It was just going mad. And then with Tear, that got even worse. We were just like in the studio building it as we sort of went. And I was doing like 50-part harmonies and God knows what else, doing, choir sections and everything. So really, it was just a continuation of this keyboard thing, which allowed us to do that. And we kind of got a bit technical with the Sabbath sound. The basic part of it, the Tony Iommi thing, never changed. And he was always Tony Iommi. You can't take that away. It's the basis of everything that, is to do with Black Sabbath. So we explored it, we played with it, we toyed with it, turned it upside down, inside out, and kind of just went with it. So the writing process, like you're asking, was really quite exciting. I mean, to be able to do that with Black Sabbath, I don't think we could have gone any further with that idea. In fact, when I came back to do Cross Purposes, we kind of went back towards the old 4-piece sound with Geezer Butler. So I think Headless Cross and Tear was it. really. I don't think we could have really got it any more technical because, you start to water down the whole Sabbath sound, really. So it was exciting, and we did enjoy it. Some great moments there with Cozy Powell. Cozy Powell was kind of producing that Headless Cross and Tear thing as well. He was very instrumental in the way that kind of turned out. Lovely to work with, great guys, but fabulous. Just the one song you mentioned, When Death Calls, if I can just purvey a little story about that. I mean, Cozy Powell was a dream to watch in the studio. He was so on his game. And he started When Death Calls, and he got about halfway through, and he stopped the recording. He just stopped playing. He went, wait. And he just shouted down the microphone, "Is there enough death in this? I think it needs more death." And then carried on playing. It just started it up again. Wow. And the great thing about Cozy was he could drop in drums, because if you hit a cymbal or anything on a drum kit, it rings out. So you have to be so good when you're hitting the skins and the cymbals. You have to know where it was and how hard you was hitting everything to be able to drop in. But he did. He did it. He dropped straight in and carried on. Fantastic.
Tony, I have a quick comment. The Forbidden Period. Now, this was the last chapter with the Sabs and that relationship. Tell us about that. The influence. It wasn't perceived maybe as strongly as you wished, and the rumors of a reunion or whatnot. Yeah. Tell us about the Forbidden Period.
It was hard for me. We started off in writing the thing, and it wasn't too bad. But then we got notice that they were bringing Ice-T in to sing some stuff, and he was bringing his guy Ernie C. Nice guys, funny, great guys to work with. I like the guys a lot. But that whole rap thing kind of threw us, and we was going, no, really? What? How does that work? Black Sabbath? I don't understand. So then I sort of said, okay, I see. What? Is he singing one track, two tracks, all of them? I said, well, and this is Sabbath management. I said, well, just carry on, keep going, and we'll sort of decide along the way. Okay, that's not helping me now, because now I've already been fired once. So now I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't look good. I'm thinking maybe there's something going on here. Well, through my manager, I'd heard that there was already talking to Ozzy about various things and that, so I kind of knew that was sort of going on. But they wouldn't tell me for sure what my position was, and so now I was really insecure. Even when I was in the studio recording it, I still didn't know if I was going to be actually on the record in the band kind of thing. So I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't give it everything, and the whole rap thing was just a little bit out there. I mean, I know what they were trying to do, the Run DMC type thing, right? So, but with Sabbath, anyway, it was very uncertain days for me, and I couldn't really get a grip of it. And that's one of the songs.
No pun intended. Get a grip.
Get a grip, yeah. So it was all very uncertain, and it kind of unfolded from there. So for me, Forbidden is not a great album, but you know what? There are people out there that love it, and I don't understand.
Kiss of Death, Tony, is an epic track.
You like that?
Okay. I love that song, Kiss of Death.
Well, thank you. I mean, you're obviously seeing something in it that I didn't think I'd portrayed. To me, I was just half existing and a bit lackluster, But like I said, there are people out there that like it. So, hey, what do I know?
I was, on a personal note, I was happy because I did a guys trip to Europe that fall in '95, and we were able to catch you guys in Hamburg.
Okay.
At Docks. I actually have a photo up in my home office of you and I in the lobby of Docks.
Okay.
And I do remember you put that Kiss of Death in that show. It wasn't played on the American tour, and it was awesome. So appreciate that one.
Cool. Oh, that's good. That's a good memory. I can't remember that. But yeah,
I told you, Tony. Walt, when I told him that we were going to put this together, he had first dibs to join me on this. Walt, he could talk with you all afternoon on the history. But
sure.
Circling back, overall, what's your feeling about your tenure in Sabbath? You were involved with 5 albums, 10 years. A quick summary. If it was on your tombstone,
it's obviously the important thing. I mean, the Sabbath thing is the reason why you guys and the rest of the world know my voice. And I have to be thankful for that. I mean, it's been an honor and a pleasure to be part of it. It was really hard work for me. I'm 12 years younger than all of the guys in Sabbath, so there was always a gap between us. They had so much more experience than me. Our circle of friends were different, so it was hard work to I could never really catch them up. They were always going to be 12 years at least ahead of me. So it was hard work, but it's an important thing, and not much to complain about really. Here I am, 65 years old, and I'm still recording and stuff on the strength that people know my voice. And the reason people know my voice is because I was with Sabbath. So it doesn't hurt me. I don't go around talking about it or bragging about it, but people know that I was there. So sometimes it's got a little bit vague. When you read the Black Sabbath books, my name kind of gets erased a little bit, or the story gets skipped. But the Tony Martin story hasn't really quite been told yet, and maybe that's something for the future. Who knows? But yeah.
Well, you're the second longest tenure in the band, yeah. So you do have some chops. Quick question: have you ever met Ozzy? Your relationship with Dio? Has there ever been a family photo?
No, I met Dio once. That was short-lived. Actually, Tony Iommi had invited me backstage to one of the Dehumanizer shows here in England, and I was backstage, and Ronnie was not happy. He was not happy. I think he was really angry with Tony Iommi for inviting me back there, and I tried to catch his eye. Backstage is a relatively big affair with people all over the place, and every time he walked past me, I would run it, and it disappeared, and run it. And eventually, I managed to catch his attention, and I said, "Ronnie, come here." So he walked over, and he just stared at me, and I thought maybe he was going to hit me or something, and he just stared and looked at me, and I was trying to explain. I said, "Ronnie, I love what you do, man. I'm, a big fan," and I said, "You're a hard act to follow," and he said, "Good," and walked off. That was it. He didn't stay. He just said good and walked away. So that was my only conversation with Ronnie James Dio.
Well, you know as well as anyone, maybe he was having a bad night.
No, I mean, the guy, he's posting. He wasn't happy that I was there. I don't think he was happy about, he must have thought he was being put on the spot, and Iommi obviously hadn't told him that I was going to be there. And, after the Dehumanizer thing is when I rejoined. So there was stuff going on background, and I don't know what the issues were, but they hadn't been getting on well. Tony Iommi told me that it hadn't gone well with Ronnie, and then it folded up again, and I was back there after that. So my name has been attached to Sabbath for 11 years, more or less, without too much of a break. It was a big thing. But no, Ozzy, no. Because my manager went to school with Ozzy, so I already know all the stories.
Yeah. Well, Walt, you got any parting shots for Tony before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think, Tony, just a little small anecdote here. I read a recent interview with Michael Poulsen from Volbeat, the Danish band. They had a new album that just came out, and they're about to go on tour, but it's a very heavy album, and he explicitly called out in the interview that he was spinning a lot of Ronnie James Dio and Tony Martin era Sabbath when he was writing, and that a lot of the spirit of those albums and those periods came out in the music. So That should just give you a little affirmation about your time in the band. And I don't know if you've heard the killer cover of When Death Calls that was released by Swedish doom band Sorcerer. If you haven't, check it out. It's awesome. And that was another good one too. So that just tells you about that period. People, 20, 25 years later are still going back to it.
I know. And at the time, America wasn't too big for my era back then, but people are catching up with it now. And it's great. The kids are playing it. Like you just said, they're doing cover versions of those songs, and that's cool, I mean, it's nice that they enjoy it, firstly, but to want to be able to reproduce it and cover it and make their own version, I think is great. I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, they have to do it right, and the whole thing has to be registered correctly so that the royalties get passed on. But I don't mind that at all. I actually think it's quite shows respect for the music that we've all sort of grown up with. But like I just said, Europe was a bigger place for me, really, with Sabbath. America didn't really fly. But it's catching up now, and people are talking about it a lot. And I've just heard today from Sabbath's management that they finally got a record deal for the Tony Martin era. You're the first to hear this, by the way. They've finally got a record deal for the Tony Martin era, and it's going ahead. They're going to re-release it. So I'm looking forward to that. News. And you guys will be able to buy it again. I mean, it hasn't been on sale. Oh, blimey. How many years has it not been out there? And of course, if it's not on sale, you don't get any royalties. So I don't get a penny from like Black Sabbath because it's not on sale. So then, like now, they've just told me today that they've got a record deal, and it's going ahead. So you guys will be able to go out and buy it, relatively soon, and catch up with all those albums again. Apart from Eternal Idol, that's owned by somebody else. But yeah.
Yeah, Tony, I think you're right. Just to quickly end this, the reputations between Europe and, let's say, America. And I recall specifically on that Headless Cross tour, I mean, the tour got cut short after only eight or nine shows. But then you went over to Europe, and I remember in '89 reading in the fanzines, you guys were playing 20 shows in Russia and all over Germany. And then you came back in '94 on sort of that Cross Purposes tour. But you were back in. You had Motorhead supporting you. You had Geezer Butler up there. You refreshed the set list. You brought in all these cool songs like Symphony of the Universe and The Wizard and Into the Void. So I think there were definitely stark periods of difference in America.
There was. I mean, I was young and foolish, and I told them I could sing any song that they wanted. So they started giving me. And I did The Wizard on purpose because that was my favorite Black Sabbath song when I was a kid. When I was 15, I went to see Black Sabbath, not knowing, obviously, that you're going to be in the band. And that was my favorite song back then. I mean, even in Brazil, we had Geezer Butler and Bill Ward with us in there. So I played with three of the originals for some of it. America, we had a little thing at the time. They thought that because Ozzy was out on the road at the same time, and it kind of clashed with the Sabbath thing. So there was a little bit something going on there. That's why that was cut short. But then over to Europe, and it really, really worked in Europe, and they really took to it, whether that's the mindset of the Europeans or the kind of way the music sort of fell into their laps there. I don't know, but it certainly was bigger for me in Sabbath in Europe than it was in America. But, like I said, America has been catching up recently, and especially with the release of this new album, Thorns. People are talking back about Sabbath again now. So it's all coming alive, this whole Tony Martin thing. And it's great. I mean, I'm really enjoying it, and I'd just like to thank everybody, for picking up on it and giving it a listen. And thank you to you guys. Like I said, we need you guys. You're important to us because you get the word out and you tell everybody what we're doing. So thank you for your time, and appreciate it.
You're welcome, Tony. Thank you. So again, the new CD is Thorns. It's out everywhere. Visit Tony's socials. Just search Tony Martin. You could get it's on Dark Star Records. Tony, thank you again for spending the morning, well, our morning, your afternoon. And
sorry, but it's a bit early for you, isn't it?
No, hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Thank you again, and we'll speak along the way. I'll get those audio things to do. My apologies for missing that, and we'll speak soon. Cheers, buddy. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tony. It's been a pleasure. Bye.
Metal for life.
Thanks for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our websites at metalmayhemroc.com and metalforever.com for information on upcoming concerts, podcasts, archives, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. Catch us next time on WLFE DB Radio.